Good morning, everybody. Welcome into another edition of the Sac City Podcast. I am your host, the one and only Vinny Milani, joined as always by your boy, AJ Johnson. Below him, we have my best friend in the whole entire world. He is Aaron the Mukesiah Mukes. And below me, we have the smoothest voice in sportscasting, the reigning, the defending, the undisputed heavyweight valedictorian of the show, Dylan Kearns. It is a beautiful July 21st morning here in the city. Episode 56 is about to kick off. We are finally diving back into some real football. Obviously, we had our fantasy football shows. If you missed any of those, you can go check them out now on our YouTube channel at Sac City Pod. But it is time to dive in to some training camp. We've got some real football underway. Gentlemen, we're starting, of course, with the AFC North tonight. But it's our first show of the week. I got to ask, how goes it, AJ?
Oh, me? So good. It's a beautiful morning. I'm excited to be here, and finally, it's just creeping up. Less than 50 days. That's an exciting thing to hear. I'm ready to sit my butt down, crack open a nice brewski, and watch some great football coming up here. And I don't know about you guys. I know we talk pro and whatnot, but I'm also excited for the start of college football. I'll get in that as it goes on and get your little practice in before the pro season starts. So it's around the corner. I know us four and everybody watching are getting hype, more and more hype as the days go on.
Oh, yeah, absolutely buzzing. We are actually 49 days away from kickoff. Can any of you guys tell me anybody in the NFL with the number 49?
So, I don't know if he's still in the league anymore now. Daniel Sorensen, right?
I don't have that answer. I had one. I had one, and I was expecting one of you guys to. Sorensen is number 49. Yeah, attaboy. Good shit.
Any linebacker ever.
I looked up the best players to ever wear 49, and it gave me all of the all sports. A lot of baseball players, a lot of pitchers and stuff that are 49. But Jamie the Moyer. One that Tremaine Edmonds, linebacker for the Bills, was the most notable number 49. They had him as the second best all time person to ever wear 49, which is wild.
That's thin. That's a very small pool of guys.
Not a popular number there.
Exactly. You know what else is not solid? And this is really why I went to AJ first here, is because we had very sad news involving his Atlanta Falcons in our big morning headlines. Just 2 days in, Eddie Goldman retires from the Atlanta Falcons. He says, you know what? F this shit, I'm out. I can't deal with Marcus Mariota. I can't deal with the Falcons. I'm out of here. AJ, Are you upset? Is this tragic news? Are you heartbroken?
I'm just trying to see where you got this 2-day stuff. I mean, he signed with them on the 6th of July. So, I mean, the veterans don't even go to training camp till the 26th. So I don't know where you got that from. But the only sad part for me is it would have been cool to see another one of my Florida State Seminoles go play for the Falcons. But he decided for other reasons he wasn't going to. And even so, it is what it is. You can look back at Eddie Goldman for the last couple of years, and it's not like he's breaking down the barriers to be the guy he was when he came into the league. So there's been a lot.
Whoa!
I can't say
Eddie Goldman is only 27, bro. This is not a retirement that's like, hey man, he's played 15 seasons. You're talking about he's not what he once was. Like, what are you talking about?
Well, if you would have let me finish, you would have heard it.
He was a never was.
I said the conversation around Eddie Goldman over the last couple of years has been he's not what he was when he came in the league. There's been multiple people that said since before when he got his payday, he sat comfy on his money. Then the pandemic season came out. He sat out respectfully. That's fine. He did that. And then when he came back in, he didn't go to any camps. He didn't come to training camp. They said he was working out in California. There was nothing to prove for it.
That is fair.
It's nothing but
that boy retired
injury after injury.
He retired after he put pen to paper, kind of like Michael Thomas.
That is fair, but that's not what you said. Like, you didn't go into all those. You literally just I glossed over the fact that the man's only 27.
Order in the court. Order.
He's a young guy who got paid and then didn't want to work anymore. Like, let's be real.
I'm trying to keep myself together while all I can see on my periffs is you just.
I just wanted to bring up the fact. There it is again. The Atlanta Falcons just ruining people's careers.
I honestly only put this. I only put this headline in. I did not think we would go that far on talking about Eddie Goldman. I just put it in just for shits and giggies. There is another shits and giggies headline I really did want to just throw out there and see you guys' thoughts. Do any of you guys give a shit about these Madden ratings that are coming out? Obviously, in the football world, there are a lot of people that do care about them. I care about them. I know some of our fans care about them.
Why do you care about them? I mean, it's not like you're any good at Madden.
I'm not as good as you in Madden, but I like to play for fun. I'm a casual player, you know. I'm just a casual player.
You're more than a casual player. You're an active player who sucks. You play in very many ways.
Story of my life. I am an active. I actively live my life, and I suck. That's kind of how this works. But the Madden ratings were revealed. One of the biggest ones that I've noticed and seen a lot of people talking about is the fact that Myles Garrett got a 99 overall, and TJ Watt is a 96, I believe, is what it was.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any thoughts on that before I get into the actual headlines of the show?
I do. And I'll say it. Myles Garrett's a better football player than TJ Watt.
Ding, ding, ding.
We get so enamored with, he put up these sack numbers and he maybe had the most sack. You watch Myles Garrett play football, setting the edge, creating quarterback pressures, understanding run concepts and pass concepts. That is an entire football player. It's easy to jump out and look at TJ Watt's stats and what he does, and he's great. And you're talking 99 to 96, whatever. Yeah. But if you want to argue,
that's a lot. That's a big jump
in Madden.
If you want to argue the type of player from Myles Garrett to TJ Watt, from a football, pure X's and O's football standpoint, Myles Garrett is an absolute generational talent, a player that lived up to the hype that we just haven't seen at that position all too often. So, yes, he should be rated higher than TJ Watt. You can argue 96 versus 98 or 97.
Well, honestly, you pretty much kind of explained it though, right there, is the fact that Myles Garrett is that generational superstar type of talent, and TJ Watt, he was obviously defensive player of the year. His numbers are great, but the drop off is that 99 to 96, and like what AJ was, I would assume you were going to get into is that drop off 99, 96. That
was my only issue with the TJ Watt. I think 1 and 2 is correct. I think he could have boasted a 97, 98. We're like that drop off from there is different, but we're talking 1 and 2 to move up. But I would argue those weren't the biggest ones. Like, to me, I think it's a bigger one with the wide receivers. I think Jamar Chase had a good argument to be on the bottom half. My biggest one, though, Minkah Fitzpatrick not being in the top 10 of the safeties.
He's not even in the 90s. He's like an 89.
He's 11th overall, and they put him in 89. And I was like, that's not real.
And Tyron Matthew at 94 leads the category.
You guys do understand how they do those, though, right? So there's an algorithm that it takes all of the statistical categories within that player, and it gives them that rating a value. And so when you add up all those values, it spits out the total number, which is why those are so skewed. Because if you have somebody that is like, and it's weighted, they have like elite pass rush ability,
right,
but terrible run ability, or speed is this and their elusiveness is this, like it adds all that up and it spits out a number. And so sometimes those ratings are obviously not so accurate, and there's problems with them, and it's not perfect.
They need to hire one more team and look at this and say, where did the algorithm mess up? Computer error versus human error, and then we can move forward. Don't name a Madden's rating adjuster if you ain't.
I always see that, and I'm like, okay, let me look at the top 5 players, and those are the players that matter, and then everyone else after that, Madden doesn't give a shit. They'll just give the same ratings that they've been given for the past few years. I digress. We'll talk video games at another time. There is two pieces of news that we do have to get into just to touch up on before we get into our AFC North training camp preview. Late last night, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers signed tight end Kyle Rudolph to a 1-year deal. The former New York Giant signs with Tom Brady and Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Dylan, what are your thoughts on this move for the Bucs as Aaron sits cross-armed and weird looking over there? And
so
He hates tight
freaking
ends.
tired of tight ends, bro.
Oh yeah, true.
And especially the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We've talked about every freaking tight end that's possible because we loved Gronk so much. Just Dylan, answer the question.
I said this from the jump, but I guess everybody could have because there was a vacancy there. They lost O.J. Howard. They lose Gronk. Of course, they're going to sign a tight end, and I thought Kyle Rudolph would look at best. I did like Tom Brady's quote saying he's not going to get the first read because he went to Notre Dame. I thought that was pretty funny. Michigan-Notre Dame rivalry there. But no, I think he fits their system pretty well. Another red zone option for him. Rudolph, the red zone reindeer, might be catching touchdowns with some cannons firing off in Mr. Tampa Bay. Good stuff there. I think it's a good signing.
Could be a good fit. Aaron, I will give you this to move on from tight ends. I just wanted to talk about that deal for a moment. The other news that was brought up earlier yesterday, according to ESPN's Adam Schefter, Jimmy G has been granted permission to seek a trade. Obviously, there were reports and rumors going around all offseason. Oh, you sitting back?
I'm just playing. I just did that because you brought up Jimmy G. I'm playing with you.
We have talked a lot about Jimmy G and then Baker Mayfield and the quarterback carousel that was going on this offseason. But now it is official. The San Francisco 49ers have granted permission to the 49ers quarterback to seek a trade. He has been cleared to begin practicing. Aaron, where is the best fit for Jimmy G, and will we see him in a different jersey this season?
Two things. I want to ask you a question off that first. Hadn't they already been working to make a trade for him? Like I thought that was reported way back in April.
I feel like the difference here maybe they were working on a trade. Maybe they were like, okay, let's see if we can make the trade. And then they couldn't find anything. So they're like, all right, Jimmy, go do it yourself. If you find the trade, come back to us and then we'll make it happen.
I think it's odd timing. Part of the reason I think it's odd timing, or not odd timing, but I think it's appropriate timing because they just came out with a report yesterday saying that he was going to be able to now throw in August because of his shoulder. I think that has a lot to do with why he's now had permission to seek a trade, because now he can go out and say to teams like, hey, I'm good, I can throw. So I think that's a big part of it. What is the best fit? Right now, I mean, Seattle, maybe. I don't know that there's a really good fit for him right now. I'm trying to think of a spot. You know what might be a good fit for him, but I don't know that he would get any kind of starting opportunity there. New Orleans. Yep. They'll get traded to New Orleans. You know, Jameis still had the knee injury. Maybe he's not quite ready, or maybe they give him the opportunity and maybe he falters a little bit, or just have a good solid backup in a Jimmy Garoppolo with a solid defense. They do. They did bring in Andy Dalton, but
Dylan, you brought up pre-show a very good point about a potential landing spot for Jimmy G, and I thought it was a good fit. If you want to go and tell the listeners what you said.
I can't remember where I said. I'll be honest.
Oh my God!
It was the New York Giants. You were like, if Daniel Jones goes down, it's going to be that would be a good spot for him.
Let me say right here. One thing I said: I don't think he gets moved unless there's an injury in training camp, preseason, and if there was an opportunity in a New York. I know they have Tyrod Taylor there, another veteran, but I think bringing someone in with the pedigree of Jimmy Garoppolo, he wins games. Say what you want, right? I mean, that guy will win you football games. He's not going to win you football games, but he's a good game manager. He can get the job done. I think if there's an injury there, maybe Tennessee, if there's something with Tannehill, we've seen a Jay Cutler.
That makes more sense.
That. Yeah. I think Tennessee.
That makes more sense to me, but the Giants and Brian Daboll's offense does not make sense. Look at the quarterbacks he wants. Big, strong, physical.
He just needs someone.
But again, think about the quarterbacks that he got. He went and got Tyrod Taylor because he has a very strong arm. He's able to move out of the pocket. That's not Jimmy G's game. I don't know that the Giants is the fit. When you bring up Tennessee, I think that's a great spot for Jimmy G. Matter of fact, I'd probably start Jimmy G over Tannehill, to be honest. But you're paying him too much. Yeah, it could never happen.
My worry with Tennessee was how much you'd pay him, and then you're renting him really, because are you expecting to sit Malik Willis for the foreseeable future? So like in that case, for me, I don't know if you would make that move. Here's another one that I was just looking at trying to figure out, because honestly, for the first time, I don't feel like there's a ton of spots for just a random quarterback to go to. What about Detroit? I mean, everyone's had the questions about Jared Goff, and I know you made the trade, but if you can get into Jimmy G and Jared Goff isn't that guy this year, and you can see that Jimmy G can do it, maybe now your future isn't being spent on a top-notch QB. Now maybe you can.
Isn't that what they did before, though? Isn't that what they've done with?
Makes sense too.
I feel like that's what they've done with Jared Goff. Like it's like, okay, we're just prolonging the inevitable of needing to get.
I think Jared Goff and Jimmy Garoppolo are the same quarterback.
I think Jimmy G would give you more than Jared Goff would in that offense.
I'm telling you right now.
Don't disrespect Jared Goff.
The Atlanta Falcons and the Seattle Seahawks have really screwed up the NFL with giving Marcus Mariota and Geno Smith and Drew Lock. Like they're fucking up the whole NFL.
Yeah. Honestly, I just don't think Detroit is. I think Detroit's mindset is they spent this year and waited for the quarterback next year. Like I don't think it doesn't matter how good Jimmy G goes in there, even if he got there and played. I don't care how good Jared Goff plays. Next year, Detroit is going to use that first round pick to get a quarterback because that's what they're going to see their future as. I think that's been their plan all along. I've said it over and over again. I don't think you can win in this league with a mediocre guy if you don't have an elite guys around a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo and or guys like Jared Goff. And I think that's what you're finding Detroit. Detroit's knowing, hey, we've drafted well, we've put together some nice pieces, but we're not elite by any means in these areas, and we're going to need a quarterback that's going to go out and win games. And I think that's what we see them do next year. Jimmy G, just unfortunate he got hurt, and he wasn't able to maybe showcase some of that stuff in the offseason to get teams to kind of buy into that. But I think he's a really good backup. So wherever he does go, I think that's a good guy to have in your locker room as a backup. But I don't know that he gets a starting job anywhere.
I think he'd be the best backup in the NFL.
If Washington's 3-1 when Wentz coughs, you never know.
When Wentz coughs.
I mean, hey, you made my Siri go off, fool. Hey, you said something. My Siri said, "What's that?" She heard the Wentz. She heard Wentz. So I was like, Wentz sucks.
It's like, Wentz, take me out of here. Aaron, bring the phone over here. I do not want to hear any more of this nonsense of Carson Wentz. Well, speaking of Carson Wentz, AJ, please tell the beautiful people at home where they can follow us at.
I feel like that's always deleted. I feel like that's always the lead. Speaking of Carson Wentz, take it away, AJ.
All right. On Facebook.
Don't take it away. You sound like shit. I'll do this one. You can follow us on @SackCityPod on all our socials because AJ sounds like shit. Make sure you follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and the TikTok. And make sure you hit all those subscribe, follows, and share buttons because you know how we do it here at Sack City. We tell you good morning, Sack City, Wednesday through Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern time, all on these wonderful platforms. And make sure if you want to listen to us, just hear our voices without any video, you go download this podcast on all podcasting platforms. #GMSC.
Boom.
So, like, was I skipping or something?
Your audio went like completely
it was
weird.
Like you were in an airplane doing your pitch.
Oh. Still the greatest airplane pitch of all time.
That
plane went, and AJ didn't move. That plane took turbulence. AJ was still.
I'm a pro. I'm turbulent with my plane rides, bro. I'm good.
Passengers, this ride's getting a little bumpy, and AJ's just sitting there.
Just smooth.
My name's AJ Johnson, and I just wanted to introduce myself.
Hey, if there was ever time you didn't need to let turbulence affect you, was when you making that airplane pitch. I was focused. All right.
There you
Welcome
go.
to Spirit Airlines.
Soul plane.
Hell to the yeah.
Hey, don't disrespect Spirit Airlines. I'm flying home on Spirit. They cheap and hey, I've been on Spirit. Matter of fact, I flew out to you guys on Spirit. They not bad. Matter of fact, they were better than Southwest as far as them landing the plane. Now
that's hilarious because my plane could never take off because they just kept canceling my flights and leaving people stranded in the airplanes in the airport. So I guess I don't really know.
American did that to Dylan.
No, Aaron, don't fly American to Sacramento the last week of July. Literally 365 days later, you're going back to Sacramento, but you picked a different airline. I bet you get there safe.
Yeah, a lot of airline trouble last year, didn't we?
Yeah, this is.
I've never had plane trouble.
Airline, hairline, everything.
Hey, don't jinx yourself. Don't jinx yourself. All right, let's get into it, though. It is now time to dive in to the AFC North training camp previews. You know how we do it. If you're new to the show, we're going to go division by division in each episode, break down what to watch out for in every team's training camp. We're starting off with the AFC North. We're going straight to the Cincinnati Bengals. Rookies report July 23rd. Veterans report July 26th. Going to Aaron here first. We've talked a lot about Jessie Bates not receiving a long-term deal, although Dylan reported it months ago that he was going to get it because he said it at a bowling alley of some sort. He doesn't have a long-term deal. Aaron, what should we be looking at from Daxton Hill this training camp that shows fans that maybe he could do it?
Well, they got to show me he can do it. I guess that's what I'm looking for. Show me he can do it. We're talking about a guy who, again, I was not very high on in the draft. I spoke about his size. People wanted to compare him to Tyrann Mathieu, and I told him Tyrann Mathieu was a third-round pick. If he can live up to that, then no problem. But his size is going to be an issue when you start talking about being on the back end of a defense. I don't know that he fills that Jessie Bates role. I think he's going to be more of that hybrid interior, can work down in the box, but play some slot guys type role. I think that's kind of where he excels at. And if they allow him that freedom to roam in the secondary like a Tyrann Mathieu, I think you're going to get the best version of what Hill can be. If they try to just force him to be that traditional, hey, we want you to take Jessie Bates' spot once he's gone, then I think that's where he's going to run into some issues because I don't think that best suits his style of play. But he's a guy that has like a bunch of athletic ability. He's super talented, but he has to be able to be allowed to roam on the back end. He can't be forced to sit on one side like we've seen from a Jessie Bates and just play that side, be physical, go make plays in the secondary. I think he needs to be a little bit more free. So if he does that, if they allow him to get in and work those situations, I think he can grow and prove to be what AJ thought he can be or what some of the Bengals fans think that he can be.
That's what I kind of still think he's going to be. And I think you make a good point with, not being Jessie Bates right off rip. But if he's not going to sign that long term, this is the type of season you use to breed and bred him to become something like that. And I think, and another good point that you like, and I kind of noticed and spoke about this, firstly with like Jabril Peppers back, who didn't really, pan out the way we wanted him to. But a lot of these defensive players are kind of going like the basketball type of way, and it's becoming like quote unquote positionless. Yeah, you may be listed as safety. We talked about we list guys as DB now because maybe they line up on the outside when you like the matchup. Maybe they line up at linebacker when you want to fake a rush. Maybe they are playing safety. They have these abilities, great ball skills, great line skills, all these different abilities to let them be utilized in many different ways. And Dax Hill's been able to show that he can do that. He can play up on the line. He can drop back in the coverage. He's got the ball skills. So we just have to remember and temper ourselves that he's a rookie and it may take him a couple games, but I think he's one of those players you're going to watch continue to develop and continue to get great as the weeks go on and as the seasons go on.
You bring up a point there about the versatility, and we started to see that coming to the league years ago, but one of them that really piqued my mind over the last few years was Isaiah Simmons out of Clemson, someone that could play multiple positions and basically get it done everywhere. He's sort of had a rough start to his NFL career. But I like Aaron's point. You can't replace them. Going back to the Moneyball logic, you're not going to replace what Jessie Bates brings. The guy's an all-pro safety. He's not the same player as Jessie Bates, but it just allow him to be him. You didn't go into Jessie Bates saying, hey, you got to be out there doing what you need to do. No, you let him do his thing. You let him groom into who he's going to be. And that's what the Bengals got to do with Dax Hill. I'm completely on board with that. Just let him play football. Just let him get his playing time out there. Jessie, once he signs his not his extension, but his tag, he'll be ready to go out there and play football. And then whatever time that Dax Hill has, he'll be out there learning from Jessie Bates, and it could be as heir apparent.
I think it's important, too. We got to remember what Cincinnati did in the offseason. It wasn't like they just said, oh, we're going to get Dax Hill. They signed and went after everybody and drafted everybody. They drafted Tyson Anderson. They got Cam Taylor-Britt. They got Dax Hill. They got Trey Flowers in the secondary. They've tried to revamp where they felt they were weakest at, which is what we harped on all last year. As good as they played in some of those games down the stretch, we kept saying the weak spot is the secondary. The weak spot is the secondary. And we saw it late in the Super Bowl. Matt Stafford, Cooper Kupp, they carved them up. And so they went and they addressed where they were weakest at. And it might – I don't know that – and I'm saying this not as the Dax Hill hater, but I don't know that it's Dax Hill that replaces Jessie Bates. That could be Cam Taylor-Britt. I think they want Dax Hill to be more of that nickel guy, what Mike Hilton does a little bit. It could be a Tyson Anderson who turns out to be their future safety if they come along. It's going to be about who is showing up in this training camp, right? Who is starting to make those plays. You might see something where maybe it's Dax Hill who starts that third spot, or going to be the guy. Next thing you know, it's Cam Taylor-Britt who starts week 1 if Jessie Bates doesn't sign a tag, or is it Tyson Anderson, or is it somebody else? So I wouldn't be so quick to just say it's Dax Hill. I think with the first round pick, I think he's going to get every opportunity to be him. But if another young guy that they got steps up in that role and is more effective, it would not shock me if it's one of them.
Is it fair? Educate me here. Von Bell is their other real starting safety that you can almost pencil him in as the day one starter at the safety position. Could you possibly see him kind of try and fill the Jessie Bates role? Obviously, you guys talk about not being able to fill and replace Jessie Bates because he's great. But do you see them leaning on Von Bell more this coming season if Jessie Bates is to not play and his role be amplified as we get towards closer to the season?
Different players.
Okay.
Jessie Bates is much better in space. Jessie Bates is much better in the passing game. And there have been times where he's even struggled as he's kind of grown throughout his NFL career. Von Bell is that more in the box, right, closer to the line of scrimmage. Put him on a safe or put him on a tight end. He can go out and, lock up some tight ends around the line of scrimmage type stuff. He wants to be down. He doesn't want to be out in the open space, having to get over the top of guys. So I think it would be different. I think that's if for whatever reason Jessie Bates doesn't sign the tag and is not there when we start, I don't think it's about Von Bell filling that void. I think Von Bell is the staple. He's going to do what he does. I think it's going to be about those young guys having to come in and, play more in coverage. And maybe it's a mixture of both of them, maybe playing a strong suit. Maybe it's Dax Hill one play and it's Cam Taylor-Britt another play, depending on what their strengths are. Because like Dylan and, like we all kind of stressed, you're not going to just replace Jessie Bates with one of these guys until they've gotten some experience.
It could be nice too to be able to give those guys those starting reps during training camp while Jessie Bates is figuring out whether he's going to show up or not. It might be valuable to get those first team reps for Dax Hill and Cam Taylor-Britt. Dylan, go ahead.
I wanted to say one more thing on the Bates front. Laugh at me all you want, but I'm just saying, I seriously think the guy's going to be there by week 1. I think he's going to play football this year, no doubt about it, because laugh all you want. Go ahead. Start chuckling.
He put it on Snappy Chat.
Yeah. Snapchat story. He's watching the home run derby, tablet on the bottom left of game film, and he's got a cocktail in hand. He was ready. The fact that he's watching film.
Dylan, that's an NFL player is expected to do. He is not going to not watch film, so he's not ready.
Why is he even bother to watch film?
No, because you have to be ready whenever that happens. Yeah. They could call him tomorrow with the offer that he wants. The problem you're going to run into is Jessie Bates, to my knowledge, and I may be wrong about this, his contract, he is not signed at all right now, and he did not sign his franchise tender, which means he can miss all of camp and not be fined. That is huge. He doesn't have to show up to anything and not be fined, which means he has leverage right now in not being there. But the longer he's not there, the more opportunity a Dax Hill, a Cam Taylor-Britt is going to get. And if Cincinnati sees that they have something in them, you can damn sure believe they can say, you know what? We don't have to cave in and pay this guy. Wow. Now, if all those guys turn out to be busts, then you're like, yeah, we better up the offer and get this guy in here. We've seen this before, and I know it's old school, but the Dallas Cowboys did this to Emmitt Smith. Emmitt Smith held out. He missed the first 2 games of the year. They could not run the football. They were 0-2. Jerry Jones said, oh, shit. Emmitt, write your ticket. Paid him his money, and they didn't lose a game the rest of the year. Those are the kind of situations you run into, and these owners will do it until they realize we need this guy. So Jessie Bates has some leverage right now because he's not signed and he's not under contract.
Any shot he's traded?
No, because the safety market would require too much. And at this point, most teams don't have the cap space at this time of the year to do that or willing to do that. I don't think he's traded. I think he either stays in Cincinnati and he bites the bullet and signs the tender to play eventually, or Cincinnati caves and pays him the money.
Next time we talk about the Bengals, Dylan will have reports from the local gym that Jessie Bates plays basketball at, and he'll be able to give us the next report. AJ, you're next on one last talking point about the Cincinnati Bengals. It's their defensive line. We're going to stay on the defensive side of the ball. They chose not to bring back Larry Ogunjobi. He had the whole Chicago Bears thing, and then he didn't get signed by them. They had a second chance to sign him, and they still said no. They passed up on that. Who should we be focusing on with the Bengals' interior defensive line? And what will their impact be this season?
I guess all that money they spent on that back half really bit them in the ass in the front half. But to answer your question directly, my first choice would be BJ Hill. But in all honesty, it's going to come from the guys on the edge making space for these guys to work, to set the edge and push them back. Because BJ Hill, while he's serviceable, he's not one of those guys that kind of pops off the film at you. I mean, he's still talented, averaging about 5 sacks last season. But you need these guys. I talked about the Bengals last year a lot, and the word I always used was they were a good unit. When the back half wasn't working, the front half was getting after it. When the front half wasn't working, the back half was opportunistic. It's going to be a lot of that again, in my opinion. And on the defensive line, with the Joseph Asai and a Trey Hendrickson, if they're setting the edge correctly, if they're pushing these guys back towards it, and a BJ Hill can be that big body to stuff it up, that's what you're going to look for. DJ Reader, he's going to be there, but I don't think he's one. I think you'll see his position get rotated a little bit more and see some of these young guys like the Chris Carrs they signed get an opportunity. DJ Reader's okay. He's consistently going to get you 2 sacks a season. That's where he's sitting about the last three of the last 4 seasons. But I think BJ Hill's a guy that you're hoping can step up and, maybe get that up to that 7 sack where Larry was, and a couple more quarterback hits this year. If he can get a double-digit quarterback hits, you may not feel the loss of a Larry O as much as you would think they would at this point in time.
And that was a hell of a trade last year by the Giants and the Bengals right before the season started. I mean, BJ Hill had a great season last year. Like, it was just he was buried on the depth chart because Mr. Gettleman fapped to D tackles when he was running his tenure in New York. I mean, that guy drafted one every year. But BJ Hill was buried on their depth chart, goes over to Cincinnati, has a very productive first year in Cincinnati. I like your take there with BJ Hill stepping in. I
think the depth is the biggest key.
Yeah,
they've honestly right now they lack depth, and the amount of snaps that Trey Hendrickson played last year worries me. It's not normal, and he's not really used to that. And then you come back this year, and I just don't see the depth there. I worry about once you get those first 4 out of there, the Hubbards, the Readers, Hills, and Hendricksons, how far do you go into that defensive line? And usually the teams with good depth on the defensive line are a lot, outperforming those without, especially when you're talking about getting a pass rush late in games when the first guys to tire out are usually those interior defensive linemen. So I worry about the depth on the defensive line, losing an Ogunjobi there. I thought that was big for them to, try to bring him back, but they'll be good. They did address, I feel like, their weakness. They'll be solid. But it's going to be tough with the lack of depth that they have on the defensive line.
Yeah.
Boom. Well done. Bengals fans would be happy with what we just said about them. We're starting off the new year right, Bengals fans. So please let us know in the comments what you think of our thoughts on the Bengals training camp preview. We're going to now move on to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and Dylan. They obviously went out and traded they ended up bringing in former Jacksonville Jaguar linebacker Myles Jack. They also have Devin Bush, who they traded up for, unlike what the Pittsburgh Steelers normally do in the first round. They traded up to get Devin Bush. Injuries have hurt him along the way. They did not exercise the 5th-year option for him. What should we be expecting this year for Devin Bush?
I mean, you mentioned it right there. He's in a contract year, right? And this was a guy last year who was just, I mean, let's be honest, he was bad. He was really bad last year, coming off the ACL injury. The thing that he needs, the thing that Devin Bush needs on that defense, he needs linemen to eat blockers so he can make a play. Right now, what shows me about Devin Bush, he doesn't want to make tackles. He doesn't want to engage in physical contact, and that's something you don't want out of your middle linebacker. And I think the loss of Vince Williams last year really hurt Devin Bush and his progression. Because, I mean, he was year 2, and in 2020, he ended up tearing his ACL. He comes back last year, and he still needed that voice, needed that linebacker next to him. They brought in Joe Schobert, another former Jag, right before training camp, or right before the regular season started. wasn't really working with those two together, and he had a bad year last year. He lacked aggressiveness. I thought he was a little bit questionable in his decision makings. I thought the loss of Vince Williams hurt. I love the addition of Myles Jack to that defense, being alongside of him. They play a 3-4 defense. Those two in the middle could be very, very lethal, because even Myles Jack needed another one. Mentioned when the Jags were rolling together, when they did their thing, Myles Jack was also on that defense, but remember, it was Paul Posluszny in the middle. So those two are sort of two little things going on there. And once Posluszny left, Jack struggled. So two going on there. I love Brian Flores. I think Brian Flores can really help this defense a lot too, and maybe progress him over the top.
Jack's, not to get into a big Jaguars thing, Jack's struggles came really after Kelvin Smith left. And they really had to lean on Myles Jack to be that guy. And I think it's an interesting connection between two guys, Devin Bush and Myles Jack, two guys who maybe have a reputation of not being able to be the guy, the lead linebacker on that defense. And now them both being together. Also now with new linebackers coach Brian Flores, who obviously was with the Miami Dolphins, that could be bringing big change and a big boost to the linebacking group in Pittsburgh.
It could. And I want to say one more thing here on Devin Bush. I mean, he needed to. It seems like, I know I mentioned he doesn't want to make tackles, doesn't want to be aggressive. I think that really affected him. But last year, he was coming off the ACL. He battled a groin. He was on the COVID list. There were still little things he was dealing with last year. I think the original question was, what do you expect from him this year? I think he's going to be pissed off, ready to try to get back to his 2019 self, because he's not getting paid after this year. If he fizzles out and has a Jalen Smith, he's out of luck. He's got to play hard football, and he's only 24 years old. He just had a birthday 2 days ago. Happy birthday if you want to wish him that. But I think he's a good football player. He's a good kid, and hopefully he can get his career back on track, because I don't see a long tenure in Pittsburgh beyond this year.
Wow. I mean, I think you're being a little harsh, first of all.
Why?
I think you're talking about a guy that is a year removed from an injury, a severe injury at that. And sometimes I know we get so enamored with these guys that come back from these injuries so quick and they're ready to go. Most of these injuries, Achilles, ACLs, you're usually not the same player the year after. Usually it takes you till that year or two to really get back to the form. We're talking about a guy that we all thought was elite, right? Coming out of college and the way he played initially, I don't think that's changed. I think maybe there was a little bit of timidness, what we saw last year, which is part of the problem, right? Maybe you're unsure. Maybe you're not attacking as aggressively as you were doing before. To the point about Myles Jack and like him, and I think a lot of that is just being in the right scheme and the right fit. We talked about how when you take a guy who likes to run freely, clean, be able just to get to ball carriers and not take on these 300-pound linemen, then have to adjust and then take on that role of getting and shedding those blockers, that's an adjustment that has to change. And that's something we saw that Devin Bush was not able to do last year. And maybe it was more about how Pittsburgh put him in those situations. Now you're in a situation where maybe he has to take those blocks on again this year because you have Myles Jack on the side that's going to be making those plays. But I think having a year to be able to feel that and see that and understand what you need to do to make those adjustments, I think you see a better version of him. If maybe he doesn't fit in what Pittsburgh's trying to do going forward, you might be right about that. But I don't want to just write off his career and get his career right after one bad season after being injured. I still think the talent level's there, but that being timid after an injury is a real thing. And for these guys that have suffered a knee injury like that, it's so severe. They don't trust that knee. And you have to actually play for a season like he did last year to say, you know what, I can do what I used to do. And maybe that confidence is back this year. You at least hope it's back.
To your point on last year, I think the main point was he was coming off an ACL. In the offseason, he was progressing just to be healthy for the season. Now that he's coming back, he's like, okay, I just played a full season. Now I can progress and get ready for an NFL season instead of, all right, I need to rehab to get back. I'm ready to go play football. I'm in a contract year, damn it. I'm ready to win football games and make money and make tackles. So hopefully that's the attitude he takes.
Yeah, and the rehab portion is big, right? You spend that first offseason rehabbing. This offseason, I'm not rehabbing. I'm working now. I'm doing what I normally do to get ready for a season, and I think that's a huge difference.
And again, like I said before, I like Brian Flores being their linebackers coach. That's huge. That's huge, I think, in the growth of anybody, whether it be Devin Bush, Myles Jack, or whoever else they have in their linebacker group that needs growth. Brian Flores can bring that. On the offensive side of the ball, they obviously drafted Kenny Baby Hands Pickett to be their quarterback, hopefully, maybe of the future. But they also went out and signed Mitch Trubisky. Now, earlier on in the offseason, there were those ridiculous reports saying that so-and-so is the lead guy, the lead quarterback right now, and that report meant nothing. Now we start entering training camp, and the quarterback battle starts to really take place. So, Aaron, tell the people at home what they really need to look out for within this quarterback battle and how they can determine who's actually going to be the guy on week 1 for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I think when you talk about determining who's going to be the guy, it's like, don't go crazy. Go with what we always see. Mitch Trubisky is a veteran. Mitch Trubisky has won football games in the NFL. Mitch Trubisky has read NFL defenses. And Kenny Pickett wasn't some top 5 pick that they're forced to throw in there. Mitch Trubisky is the starting quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers come week 1, barring some just crazy preseason or injury from Mitch Trubisky or Kenny Pickett having some crazy preseason. Mitch Trubisky is a guy who's mobile, which fits today's NFL. He's shown that he's had flashes at times to where he can be effective. It's really about putting him in the right situations. And let's be honest, we've all lamented the fact that none of us trusted Matt Nagy. So anything that's happened with Matt Nagy, I'm going to throw out the window. It's just not something that I'm comfortable saying, hey, this is a guy that has groomed quarterbacks to my liking. So I think right now it's hands down easily Mitch Trubisky. I think it's his job to lose. I think what Pittsburgh is going to be looking for is Kenny Pickett taking those strides throughout training camp, getting better and better, and then deciding whatever the performance level of Mitch Trubisky is when is the right time to go to Kenny Pickett. If Mitch Trubisky is treading water up and down, winning and losing, there's going to come a point in time where they're going to look and say, you know what? Okay, now Kenny Pickett's team for the future. That's our future guy. But if Trubisky goes out and is playing well and is winning football games with a team that I think we all feel has talent around him, Kenny Pickett will sit on the sidelines until they feel like he's ready to go in. And I think that's the appropriate way to handle this. I don't think they have to be in a rush to do it because, again, Kenny Pickett was not pick number 5. He was pick 20, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think you're in another good situation, too, where you kind of have similar quarterbacks here. Strong arm guys who are both mobile enough to get out of the pocket, move around in the pocket. So you get the opportunity not having the backup who's just talking you through what you should be doing. He's actually going out there and doing it and being able to come back to the sidelines, explain what he actually saw on the play that he just went through, explain the opportunity that he has, what he can move through. So you have that blessing. And you're right, if he doesn't do it well, at least he's gotten whatever nuggets he needed to. And then Kenny Pickett can go out there from what he's learned, as well as his just God-given talent, instincts, and ability, and do the best he can. So I liken it to a situation like Lamar Jackson coming in from Joe Flacco. Not saying they're the same player, just if you get to that point where you're talking about, hey, we just need a spark. We need to see if we can rip off 4, 5, 6 games and maybe backdoor into the playoffs again. Maybe Kenny Pickett gives us that chance. If not, Mitch Trubisky wasn't either way. So I think they're in a good situation. And unless Kenny Pickett immediately shows that he's the guy, I do believe Mitch Trubisky should be the starting quarterback to begin the season for the Pittsburgh Steelers. At Acura Shore Stadium, just gross.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I'm not even going to get into that nonsense. But let's be real here. As fans, if you're watching this video and you're a big Pittsburgh Steelers fans, be patient with this process. Like Aaron, I believe that's what you started off with. Be patient with this process. If it's Trubisky's week 1 and they start to struggle through 3 weeks, be patient. The baby hands are on the way. Okay. Let's move on now.
The baby hands
clown shoes, bro.
The baby hands are on the way.
I mean, they're on the way.
You said everything right, the patience aspect, and then you said baby hands are on the way. Like,
hey, I mean,
you're not giving them much. You're not giving them much to look forward to. The fact is most fans get excited.
Baby hands are adorable. Okay?
No, but what I'm saying, the most fans are excited to have Kenny Pickett, and then you throwing out baby hands every 2 seconds.
Well, what they really should be excited for is Canadian-born wide receiver Chase Claypool.
Yeah.
If you missed that joke, go check out our Fun Games Friday episode from last week. All right, let's move on to the Cleveland Browns here, and they were the talk really of the offseason when they acquired Deshaun Watson. Now,
this guy.
Wow.
He said, I don't got no question in this segment, so I'm leaving.
Wow. Hey, I can't wait to see it on the 7 p.m. news, and he just walks off. Oh my!
What a
Mapletron.
It would have been funny. It would have been funnier if he did actually leave and say, "I don't have anything in this segment. I can leave." But instead, he does.
Dylan's gonna walk off the set on a 7:00 sportscast. Be like, guys, I gotta go get a jersey.
Gotta get my Mapletron jersey for this segment. Props, guys.
Screw the neutral face. Let's go.
All right.
Pat?
Let's get into the Cleveland Browns here. Like
Somebody
I
has an
said,
echo.
I hear it as well. Let's play this mute game on who it is. I don't hear the echo anymore.
Test.
AJ Johnson?
Of course it was AJ. Was there ever a doubt?
No way.
Hey, you can't blame me anymore. I got internet, baby. I'm back.
I don't hear it anymore, so we're good. We're good. Let's get into this Cleveland Browns talk. This is what we need to be on task and on track to do. Brought in Deshaun Watson. We don't know his status of whether he starts week 1, whether he starts week 6, whether he starts week 20, whatever it may be. We don't know. I've seen in the past 3 weeks it go from 6 to 8 to indefinitely, back to 6, back to 8, back to indefinitely. We're playing a game of musical suspensions here. Until then, until we know that, Jacoby Brissett may be the quarterback for this team at some point during the season. How do the Cleveland Browns need to handle the quarterback position during training camp with the Watson suspension looming? AJ.
Quite possibly an unpopular opinion, but the other thing that you've seen within the last week at this point is Deshaun Watson his camp come out and say if he gets anything longer than 6 weeks, they're probably going to sue the NFL and push this thing off anyways. So if I'm the Cleveland Browns, until there's a moment where the suspension is there, I'm probably letting him take the majority of the snaps, but I'm not fading Jacoby Brissett. I need to know that Deshaun Watson, if he's going to be there because he's pushing this thing off like we saw with Deflategate, like we saw with if you want to go all the way back to Roethlisberger and the way that went down, that's what I would do. If we're in training camp and he's there and he's able to go and that suspension hasn't been given, I'm taking Deshaun Watson and I'm giving him the majority of the snaps. Once Jacoby Brissett's all go, well, then we'll attack that at that point in time. But if I'm the Cleveland Browns, I brought Deshaun Watson in. He's going to be my QB of the future at some point. I would work that way.
I don't love that idea. I get the premise behind it, and I get it. I don't love the idea of giving Deshaun Watson the first team reps. There is zero doubt in my mind Deshaun Watson's getting suspended from the league. They can sue all they want. Sue's not going to stop the suspension. It's not going to put the suspension on hold. He's just all it's going to do is be about recouping money. You can't. They could suspend him 8 games and then Cleveland files a lawsuit and says, "Oh no, he should be able to play." It's not going to change the suspension until that court case is heard. He's going to serve a suspension, same way Tom Brady served a suspension. I think you go into it with the mindset of Deshaun Watson's going to miss time. They should be splitting the first team reps. And I'm going to tell you, I'll be honest, maybe it's not even Jacoby Brissett. Reports today said they're interested in Cam Newton, and that Cam Newton might be in play if once that Deshaun Watson suspension is actually given out, and maybe even before then, if they feel like they have good clarity on it going to happen, they could sign Cam Newton. And I'll tell you this, as bad as Cam Newton's been, Cam Newton will beat out Jacoby Brissett for that job.
Yeah.
Because he's physically different and there's different things you can do with him. But that being said, I never liked the idea. Deshaun Watson, to me, he hasn't played football in a year, and I get that. I'm not worried about him getting first team reps necessarily. Like, I think he'll figure it out. I need Jacoby Brissett.
That I can give you.
I need Jacoby Brissett to get reps, because if you're Cleveland, you're thinking about this. We have a Super Bowl caliber roster. In your mind, that's what they think. We have a Super Bowl caliber roster with Deshaun Watson on the field. We can't afford to be 1-7 with Jacoby Brissett. We need to be 4-3, 3-4, somewhere where if Deshaun Watson comes in, he can make a difference and carry us the rest of the way. We can't fall so far behind that we feel like we have no shot at the playoffs. I don't think you can just give Deshaun Watson all the reps and say, Jacoby Brissett, if he gets suspended, then we'll bring you in. I think that would be bad. I think you need to split those reps with whoever they think is going to be in place of a Jacoby Brissett.
Jacoby Brissett started 5 games last year. Deshaun Watson started 0.
I don't care. Deshaun Watson is an elite talent, won a national championship, an MVP caliber, a generational talent. Jacoby Brissett is Jacoby Brissett.
They're both learning the offense at the same time. I
don't care. The skill level between Jacoby Brissett and Deshaun Watson is here. Like, you can't even see it. That's how big of a difference it is.
What about the fact that that maybe a new offensive system being brought in here to Cleveland with Deshaun Watson now being at the quarterback position? You want to be able to.
It's not a new offensive system.
Are they not? You don't think that this offense is going to change at all? Do you think this is going to be the same Baker Mayfield type led offense?
It's it's not a new
the
system.
Playbook expands.
You just throw the ball more, right? You're comfortable throwing the ball. It's not a new system. So Kevin Stefanski's going to run his offense. He's just going to incorporate things for a Deshaun Watson. Jacoby Brissett is Jacoby Brissett. I'm not saying he's bad, but that is a guy learning a new playbook, is going to need those reps more so than I'm worried about Deshaun Watson learning some playbook and getting reps. I'm sorry. I don't care how long he's been out of the game. Deshaun Watson is just the superior talent. It'd be like if Tom Brady had missed a year and Tom Brady came back and you guys would be like, oh, he needs all the first. Like, no, he doesn't. He's done this he's been playing football a long time and he's been really good at it. So I'm not saying he's Brady. I used an extreme example. What I'm saying is Deshaun Watson is mentally, he's one of the smartest quarterbacks in the NFL. From a football IQ standpoint, Deshaun Watson is excellent. It's not like you have a guy that's not going to be able to adjust to the mental side of the game. Physically, he's going to have to obviously get back in shape and all that stuff and be football ready. But from a mental standpoint, Jacoby Brissett is far more behind the curve in the NFL realm of football than Deshaun Watson. So I want him to be ready because I worry that if you go 1-7, you are now wasting the first season of Deshaun Watson coming in week 9. Like, it's cool, but you're not getting anything out of that. Cleveland needs to win now. They've set this roster up to win the next 3 years. Like, that's their window. So I don't know that you can fall behind, and I think that's what I would be worried about if Jacoby Brissett doesn't get the reps.
Quickly, because I know we got to move on here, and I'm seriously asking because I was under the impression that the entire point of suing the NFL along with the NFLPA is to get something like with Tom Brady, where it's basically pushed an entire year before that suspension's even served. So that can be a likelihood of this situation, can it not?
Yes, the suing would have to take place before the actual suspension is handed down, though. Tom Brady did not sue the NFL once they suspended him 4 games. When he got word that he was going to be suspended for whatever, like he was going to be suspended, he filed a suit against them. Yeah. They had never announced it was going to be 4 games until after the suit had played out. That's the difference. So like right now, if Deshaun Watson's had discussions with the NFL and they've said, hey, we're going to suspend you 8 games, and they don't agree with that, before that is even made, like, hey, we suspended you 8 games, Deshaun Watson would then have to file suit and say, hey, this is what I'm doing. And technically, yes, he could play at that point if the suspension is actually never handed down. But if they hand that suspension down and then he appeals it and files a lawsuit, that's usually in the NFL, at least the precedence has been set, that is usually about a money recoup. And in this case, I don't know why Deshaun Watson would do that since his money is guaranteed anyways. Yeah. I don't know how that comes into play. So I doubt, I'm going to be honest, I doubt that if he gets an 8-game suspension, he's suing anybody. But I think he takes that, he eats that, and he goes with it.
Is there a chance the news breaks that Deshaun Watson sues the NFL before we see his game suspension? And if that's the case, are you like, holy shit, what's about to happen?
If you get that news, I think then what my first instinct would be is the NFL suspended him for the year. That's what I would feel like.
Yeah.
Because then you're going to run into a situation where if I'm suspended for a year, I'm going to fight. I'm going to do whatever I can to fight that off. But 8 games, I think he's going to look at it to his guys and be like, look, let's just eat it and come back, let it all behind us and move forward with my career. That's what I would recommend.
That'd be the smartest thing. Yeah. So I know the public reports, the big wigs, they were using a year, but there were other threads that were talking about hearing 8 games at the most or something of that nature. I believe you talk about the football IQ. I also think he's just a generally smart guy. I think 8 games, and forgive me, but I think you would look at that with this situation kind of a slap on the wrist and would move on, move forward. So,
yeah. There's one other topic within the Cleveland Browns that doesn't have to do with Deshaun Watson or even Jacoby Brissett. It's at the wide receiver position. And Aaron, we obviously know Amari Cooper was traded from the Dallas Cowboys to the Cleveland Browns. He is wide receiver 1 in Cleveland. They no longer have Jarvis Landry. Who is next in line to be the wide receiver 2 in Cleveland? What are you looking out for?
Yeah, I think what's most intriguing, and I don't know who the number 2 is, to be honest, but I'll tell you why I wanted to bring this up in this episode is I think it's really intriguing who that number 2 is. We saw kind of an emergence of a Donovan Peoples-Jones last year, started to play a little bit better as the season went on, and this was with Baker Mayfield being hurt. But I really, really, really like David Bell. I've liked him for a number of years coming out of Purdue. I think this is a guy – I don't want to say he's similar to Amari Cooper because he's not on Amari Cooper's level by any means. But I think he's a guy that works the middle of the field. He's going to get open. He creates a little bit of separation. He's physical. He knows how to get at the top of his routes and get in and out of breaks. I think he can be a safety blanket for guys. And I think with him and Amari Cooper being those safety blankets, I think then you get the big plays of a Donovan Peoples-Jones who stretch the field. So maybe at the end of the year, David Bell has a better year, but the more impactful plays come from a Donovan Peoples-Jones being long touchdowns and things like that. So I really like that. And then I want to throw out a sleeper name a lot of people don't really talk about, and he's been in the league for a couple of years now. It's Anthony Schwartz. And he's a playmaking type receiver. I think he's going to get a little bit more opportunity this year. I don't think guys like Jakeem Grant and any of those, Javon Wims are going to kind of get into the mix there. So I think Schwartz is that fourth guy that him, David Bell, and Donovan Peoples-Jones are going to kind of have to find their footing. He could come in and make some big plays as well. But I think the biggest battle in training camp is David Bell and Donovan Peoples-Jones.
Well done. Well done. Well done. Way to wrap that Cleveland Browns up.
Just like a bad steak.
What?
Just like a bad steak.
Yeah, well, I mean, some people like well-done steaks, but I digress.
It's like eating a tire.
It's a monster.
Hey,
go to the Michelin.
Yourself.
Did you eat your steak at Michelin?
I don't know.
Good year. Hey, can I get my good year?
Yeah. My good year at. Potatoes in my good year.
All right, let's end it on this. The Baltimore Ravens, their training camp. What should we be, Dylan? Just do it. Just let's get it. Let's get it over with here. What should we be looking at with the wide receiver position in Baltimore during camp?
Do they even have a group? I mean, obviously you look at Rashad Bateman. Rashad Bateman's an absolute beast. I think he has a great year this year. I mean, he came in last year, started the year hurt. Vinny has been just loving him. He loves Rashad Bateman. If you're new to the show,
I do enjoy some Rashad Bateman.
He loves Bateman. He Bateman. So you look at this team, and I mean, he's the only weapon there, right? You look at the rest of the roster. You lose Hollywood Brown. That's 20. He had 21 touchdowns in 3 seasons. Say what you want. That's still some production you're losing. Outside of that, they're lacking experience. They're lacking proven production. They're lacking depth. Outside of Rashad Bateman, they got a bunch of Make-A-Wish kids and kick returners running around, making magic happen. You look at their roster. You think I'm
bullshitting? Smooth said Make-A-Wish kids?
You think I'm bullshitting? Look at their roster.
He had Devin Duvernay in the Hall of Fame. He has Devin Duvernay in the Hall of Fame.
Makai Polk, Jalen Moore, Tylan Wallace, and then they got everybody that are undrafted free agents this year. They did not draft one wide receiver. They did not make one move in free agency, and they're completely screwed if Rashad Bateman were to go down. Now I can get this off my chest. Relax. There are guys I kind of like in here if I'm taking dart throws. Bear with me because everybody in that room sucks. So I'm looking at this roster, and there's a couple undrafted free agent names I like. Slade Bolden at Alabama, productive in college, nice little piece. Played in the SEC, a nice little piece on that Alabama team that's won some games. He knows what he's doing. I think he's okay. Makai Polk, 105 catches at Mississippi State. That's a pretty productive year. He was a sophomore last year. He's slow as hell, Vinny. On this offense, he's a 4.6 40 time.
He's at a 4.6.
I mean, come on. I mean, there are some pieces on this team. Maybe James Prochet takes a step, but outside of that, the rest of that roster, I talk about the lack of experience. Games started in that wide receiver room out of the top 4 on their depth chart. Rashad Bateman 4, Duvernay 10, Prochet 0, Tylan Wallace 1. The rest of them have 0 games started. That's 15 games started across a wide receiver room with 10 guys. Good luck.
I'll say this really quick about the wide receivers. I think Tylan Wallace is actually my dart throw. I think he's a sleeper. I think Harbaugh talked about him in the offseason, making strides into year 2. Receivers a hard position to transition from, even though we see guys, Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chases do it. This is off topic, not off topic, still Baltimore wide receivers, but I have to go to Vinny here. Vinny, you know how we talked about Rashad Bateman. I loved Rashad Bateman last year. I loved him coming out of Minnesota. My love for Rashad Bateman has went from like way up here to almost the level of he who shall not be named. I will still say his name, but I am highly upset with Rashad Bateman. And this has absolutely nothing to do with his football acumen, his ability on the field. This has everything to do with he is from Tift County. And for those of you that don't know where Tift County is, it's an area that I cover, okay? I cover Tift County in Georgia with where I work. And we had a camp, and he was supposed to be there. And he stood us up, okay? He stood us up. I'll be honest. We went out there. We were hoping to get interviews with them. We've been texting with the guy, and all of a sudden, Bateman got too busy. He's not going to make it to the camp. So we didn't get the interview. So I'm a little upset because I was excited. You know, Rashad Bateman, somebody we root for. So I'm a little perturbed with Rashad Bateman. I hope he comes back to Tift County and makes it up to me. Perturbed.
Perturbed. Can you spell that one?
What did I say? What did I say?
Is that a verb?
No, you said it right. He's trying to understand it for himself.
Perturbed.
Yeah, that's a big word. But how do you spell that? Perturbed?
Can you say it first?
Perturbed? I can't. No, you're the one who has to say it. I don't know. I've never heard the word before. Perturbed.
Phineas's brother.
Perturbed. P-E-R-T-U-R-B-E-D. Perturbed.
Wait.
Feeling concerned or unsettled.
P-E-T.
P-E-R-T-U-R-B-E-D.
Okay.
Perturbed.
Text it to me later so we can.
It's like feeling anxious or a little unsettled. Like I don't like that feeling because I want to root for him, but the fact that he's from Tift County and we've been covering it and he stood me up is not okay. So again, way off topic, but to Dylan's point, everything he said was very accurate. But we got to remember, this is Baltimore's offense, and at the end of the day, Baltimore's offense is 2 tight ends. We'll have a guy on the outside. We'll use him when we need to. We're going to run the football. Lamar Jackson's going to make plays, and Mark Andrews is going to go across the middle. That's our offense. We're sticking to it.
One more quick point here. Now, we've seen this before in the NFL where there's no weapons, right? The Green Bay Packers a few years ago, before they brought in Randall Cobb, it was Lazard, it was Equanimeous St. Brown, it was Valdez Scantling, it was Geronimo Allison. They had a bunch of unproven wide receivers, and they found a way to make it work. Now, hopefully that's the same case for this Baltimore group, but still, I still think they add a veteran. No matter who it is, they need to add someone to that room that can at least have experience.
They won't.
That's what I said.
Because they don't use the wide receiver too. Yeah. It's even before it was Hollywood Brown. It was just Hollywood Brown and everybody else. So
Sammy Watkins.
That's why pulling the curtain back here. I'm just gonna rip the curtain down here. I posted the doc earlier this afternoon. Dylan texts me his information and stuff. He's like, I want a graphic for this, and he tells me what route he was going to take, and saying they need to sign a wide receiver. I'm like, that's not my question that I'm asking here. There's no chance in hell that the Baltimore Ravens are actually going to be bringing in any type of wide receiver that's going to be
who, Dylan? Who are they bringing in that's going to be any better than what they got?
They're going to bring in a veteran wide receiver.
Who?
Someone in the slot.
Who?
Is Jamison Crowder still available? I don't have a list of wide receivers, free agents still available. I don't think Odell Beckham fits them. I don't think Antonio Brown fits them. But I do think there's someone that's a veteran that could fit their system. See, off my ass.
While you guys are playing, looking it up here, I'll finish my point here that I wanted to get into who the wide receiver is that's going to step up for Baltimore Ravens fans to be able to look out for during training camp. Aaron gave me somebody in Tylan Wallace who could possibly be the guy who steps up in the absence of Hollywood Brown. Obviously, Rashad Bateman could be the one. Who'd you say?
James Prochet was mine.
James Prochet was yours after we went around the goddamn roundabout for these wide receivers. Sorry.
So let me. I want to do this because I think this is important. And I want to give Dylan this chance to tell me.
This is my favorite game.
So these are the free agents available. Just some off the list: Julio Jones, Will Fuller, T.Y. Hilton.
Yep.
Who?
I like Will Fuller, deep threat.
Man never plays football.
He doesn't play football,
So-
but he.
Deshaun Watson going to play more football games
So
than him.
I guess this is my question,
I was looking at
Dylan.
earlier today.
Because I guess this is my question: is Will Fuller is still not signed, which is disturbing. He's coming off injuries. Does that make that room better?
It gives them an element that they don't have, which is a deep threat.
Really?
Yeah.
What is Tylan Wallace?
Tylan Wallace is unproven.
You just said a deep threat.
Yeah, and Will Fuller's a proven deep threat.
Okay, that's fair. If you feel like they
veteran,
need it. So, but again, let me ask you this question: how does that fit what Baltimore does? Like, how does Will
They
Fuller
just
coming
lost
in?
Hollywood, who went deep all the time.
How does Will Fuller coming in change what Baltimore is going to do and make you look at that wide receiver room and then say, "Oh yeah, now they got somebody."
With someone else there, Aaron. Rashad Bateman's in year 2. There's no veteran in that room outside of Duvernay, who returns kicks. There's no veteran in that receiving room.
So the veteran you want is Will Fuller, the guy who gets suspended for PEDs, can never stay healthy, and hasn't done much in his own career. That's what you want?
Yes, I want someone that can actually say that he started games in the NFL in that locker room.
Well, that could be anybody. That could be anybody off the list I was reading. That's
I mean,
my
with,
point.
at least with, yeah. I mean, honestly, from the list that I'm looking at, if you're going that way, I wouldn't mind Will Fuller. When he's on the field, he's been a good player, but when he's on the field, I mean, Emmanuel Sanders is still out there, and if he's not thinking about running away, that might be a type of guy that. Because here's the thing, it doesn't have to be that deep threat. You can have that mid guy, that 10 to 15 route average
Mark Andrews
type guy. So
what I'm saying is any guy you bring in is not going to be huge target volume. Right?
I understand. I'm with you on that.
So why not let those young guys flourish and get the opportunity? Because it doesn't matter who's on that outside. We saw it when Sammy Watkins was there. Doesn't matter. Des Bryant came in and played there.
Jeremy Maclin.
They're not throwing them the football. They're not going to get the ball. So what wide receiver at this point in their career is going to want to come to Baltimore and play in that offense? It's the same reason why Hollywood wanted to leave. He said, this offense didn't fit me. There's one guy, it's Rashad Bateman on the outside. That's going to be the guy that gets the targets. It's Mark Andrews. The other guy on the other side, nobody cares, which is why they don't spend money on him. I have no problem with that. Because they are focused on what their offense is doing.
Yep.
Now, should that offense change? Yes. We can debate that till the cows come home.
Yeah.
I do believe there should be somebody effective on that side. But there's not going to be one. So if they sign Will Fuller tomorrow, you know what I would do? I'd go, cool.
I'd clip it and send it to you and be like, "I told you."
Yeah, but if a different team got Will Fuller, I might be more excited. If you told me Will Fuller went to Cleveland with Deshaun Watson,
yeah,
I'd get excited. If you told me Will Fuller went to Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers, I'd get excited because that I know Will Fuller is going to fit there. I know they're going to use him in certain. I don't know whether Lamar Jackson's going to use Will Fuller or not. Give him 23 targets a year.
And then week 6 rolls around, he tears his ACL again, and he's done. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. All right, that does it for our AFC North training camp preview. We did the Bengals, we did the Browns, we did the Steelers, we did the Ravens wide receivers. That does it for another episode of the Sac City Podcast. We'll be back again tomorrow, live at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, right here on YouTube, breaking down the NFC West and their training camp previews. For your boy AJ Johnson, and for my best friend Aaron Mukes, and for the smoothest voice in sportscasting, Dylan Kearns, I am me. We will see you tomorrow.
Peace out.
Adios.
This fool winked with 2 eyes.
It's bright in here.
AJ got to end
not at all. I'm just going to listen to some good music. It's on the box and the pussy.
That's what we call a sack lunch. Nom, 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 nom.